Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is a very talented actor. You'll be able to see him on screens this Christmas as the first Doctor. He's been, of course, Argus Filch in Harry Potter, and he's also been Walder Frey in Game of Thrones. Please give it up for the brilliant Mr. David Bradley!
Shall I sit here? My lefty is better.
So thank you for joining us, David.
Thank you. Hello, hello. What a great turnout. Thank you.
Now, David, you've got a busy time ahead of you. You finished filming the latest Doctor Who Christmas special. How did you get involved in the adventure in space and time? How did that come about for you?
Well, it was a total surprise in that it was a rainy day on the south bank of London. We were watching the Queen's anniversary flotilla going by. What was it, Golden Wedding anniversary or something?
Yes.
And it was terrible weather, and we couldn't see anything because the weather was so bad. And then I got a tap on the shoulder, and it was Mark Gatiss, and he said, I'm glad I've bumped into you because I've written this thing for the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who. Would you play the Doctor? So I didn't even think about it. I didn't even say, can you send me a script or what's it all about? I just knew it would be good because it was Mark. And I'd never worked with Mark before. I'd only met him, I bumped into him in London and we just said hello. So it was a total surprise and out of the blue. So there wasn't even a formal offer from my agent or anything. So I just said yes immediately because I knew it would be brilliant. So.
And that's kind of incredible because generally actors don't get the writer just bumping into them and offering the role.
No, no.
So how did that make you as an actor feel to obviously have that recognition from someone like Mark to actually want to offer you the role straight up?
Yes, well, of course, I knew him, I've seen him as an actor as well in League of Gentlemen, and I had great respect for him, and so I instinctively knew it would be an exciting, thanks Ryan, I knew it would be an exciting adventure, literally. So yes, it doesn't happen very often. Normally you have to go through the process and meet people, meet the director, meet the producer, meet the writer, and hope they pick you because they've usually got a list. And it appears that Mark thought of me when he was writing it, so I was pretty chuffed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got... It's kind of an interesting role when you look at take a step back because it's actually... You're an actor portraying the Doctor.
Yeah.
Did you do anything different in terms of your normal preparation for this when you got the role?
Well, all I did was watch lots of the early episodes of William Hart. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Yeah? So they sent me lots of DVDs, and so I could watch the way he was, the way he would sometimes look down at people like this, quizzically at people, and William Hartnell was an actor I had admired in other films like Brighton Rock and The Way Ahead and This Sporting Life, all great British movies of the late 50s and early 60s. So I knew his work, and I remember seeing him as he was my first Doctor when I was younger. And so I had the memory of that, and also his granddaughter Jessica Carney, who appears as the granddaughter, as a little girl in the film. She is now a theatrical agent, and she wrote a book about her grandfather called Who's There? And that was enormously helpful in terms of his life outside Doctor Who and how he was, because Mark Gatiss wrote a portrait of a very talented but complicated man. And he had several issues, some of them health and some of them professional, and I heard from William Russell and Carol Ann Ford and Mark Eden, who were around when we were rehearsing and filming. And so I could grab any one of them and say, how was he? What was he like on set? Was he easy to work with? And they all absolutely loved him. And they said he was, like, he could be a very funny guy and fun to work with. But then he had his moments where maybe his illness got the better of him and it wasn't so much fun. But luckily, Mark Gatiss wrote all these different contrary characteristics of the man, and didn't try to do a kind of soft focus, Mr. Nice Guy or whatever. And so for an actor to play someone that complex is a challenge, and it's also more interesting because there are so many different sides, and you've got lots of, you know, it's like a painter. When they've got more colors to play with, the more likely they'll come up with something very rich. And so it proved for me, playing the man who played Doctor Who. And so when I came to playing the Christmas special, it was I was armed with all this information and my previous experience of working on Adventure in Space and Time. So it helped enormously, because I came to it already feeling part of the Doctor Who team, and feeling I knew the territory, I knew the world he existed in, because I was armed with all this knowledge. And so I think if I hadn't done Adventure in Space and Time, I would have found the Christmas special much more hard work and demanding, because I'd be starting from absolute scratch. So it helped enormously when it came to playing the Doctor in the Christmas special. And also I could say now that I am the Doctor, not just the guy who played the Doctor.
So that must be kind of cool for you, because, as you say, he was your Doctor. So, because most everyone identifies with a specific Doctor, but now not only do you identify with your first Doctor, you actually are your first Doctor. When you first realised that, how did that make you feel?
Well, it was just fantastic, because, like for a lot of people, the Doctor Who is just something, and a lot of actors, I'm sure, would love to have played the Doctor, but for me, just to have been in the series would have been enough. And so it proved with Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. I enjoyed doing that enormously, and that was with Matt Smith. We had great fun together. And at the end of it, I thought, well, that's it. I've done Doctor Who now. I've been in Doctor Who. Because I don't think it often happens where you can play a guest leading baddie and then come back and play the Doctor.
You're only one of 3 people to have done it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you.
So that must be extremally gratifying on another level to know that you're one of only 3 people that's ever been trusted with that. And they're all Doctors that were, because there's Colin Baker, Peter Capaldi, and yourself.
Really?
Yes.
Well, there you go. So, well, I didn't know.
So, and for you, and then if we're looking forward to the Christmas special a bit, obviously you can't tell us much about it, but when did you first get that call to come back, and how did you react to being asked to come back to do the Doctor for the Christmas one?
it just my agent phoned me about a year ago. Well, I think it was before Christmas, and just said that the BBC are interested in doing something very special for the Christmas episode this year, for Peter's last episode, and also Stephen Moffat's last episode. So they asked me, just sounded me out to say if it happened, would I be on board? Would I be interested? And I thought I better say yes quickly before they ask somebody else. So I said I would be, of course. But then it took probably 3 or 4 months before I heard again that it was all going ahead, and I didn't actually see the script until about 2 or 3 days before the read-through.
Wow!
And then we were filming the following Monday. So
wow.
It was like less than a week in which to start learning this thing and finding out what the adventure was, what the particular story was. And then I turned up at a read-through with a room full of people, all the cast, all the executives, and all the heads of department from makeup, costume, and they'd all been doing this for years. And I was suddenly in the middle of this playing the Doctor, but fortunately Peter came in, he sat next to me, and he helped me through it, and the read-through went so well, and everybody seemed pleased. So it gives you a bit of confidence to know that you're among friends and that there's a lot of support. So, but it meant a lot of hard, concentrated work.
Yeah.
To do spend 4 weeks on something when you've only just got the script. So
wow.
I was always, every day I was catching up on the next day's filming lines, and then of course there were rewrites as well. So it was a demanding 4 weeks, but it was probably 4 of the most exciting weeks I've ever had professionally, mainly because of Peter and Pearl, and of course Mark Gatiss, who also appears in it. So I felt I had a great backing, and it gives you a lot of confidence, you know.
And will you be tucking into your Christmas dinner or, whilst watching it, or this year will you be gathering the family around to watch this episode with you?
They'll be coming to my house, and I shall force them to sit down and fill them with sherry or something and say, watch this, it might be good. But we saw the trailer the other night on Children in Need, and we were just sitting around the house with all the kids and everybody in there, and somebody shouted, "Dad, you're on, you're on!" And I'd never seen it. I haven't seen any of the show. So that was my first glimpse of it, that scene on Children in Need night, Friday, wasn't it?
And they did show on that clip, which you can watch online, by the way. It is available online now. If you go onto the Doctor Who YouTube channel, you can see it. They showed you walking into Peter Capaldi's Tardis for the first time.
Yes.
Now, as an actor, what is it like walking into one of the most iconic sets in British sci-fi history? What is it like? Well,
it's like when I was doing Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and there over in the corner of the studio was the Doctor's Tardis, which of course had nothing to do with me because I was playing Solomon, this villain. But for me, just to see the box there and touch it and open the door and look inside, it was thrilling, you know. So to actually to be on the TARDIS set itself, especially an adventure in space and time, because they recreated it exactly as it was in 1963.
Wow!
And they also had some of the props on the TARDIS that were used in the original.
Oh wow!
And Hartnell's granddaughter brought in his original hat, his gold ring.
Oh wow!
And I was able to try them on, you know, and everything. So it just made it feel like real.
That's incredible.
Yeah. But to be actually acting on the TARDIS that I'd seen so many times on TV over the years, it was So it's still possible at my tender age to be surprised and amazed and thrilled at being in. I mean, especially after having been in Harry Potter and all those wonderful sets and those wonderful people. It's still, for me, thrilling to be part of the Doctor Who experience.
And
it's right up there with everything else,
And rightfully so. It's an incredible franchise. And you mentioned two the other franchises there that you've been involved in. You mentioned Harry Potter. How did you come across the character of Filch?
Well, somebody said to me the other day, "Have you been to the British Library?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, in there's an exhibition of all the original ideas that J.K. had for the characters."
Oh, wow.
And there's even drawings. She had someone do sketches of the characters as she first saw them before we actually cast the films. And apparently the drawing of Mr. Filch, he's like about 15 stone heavier than me. And a totally different costume, but that was her original idea.
Wow.
So I'll be interested to see the exhibition, to see all the other characters, what her visualization of them was before we started.
That's an incredible difference, though.
Yeah.
And when you first got that call to do it, were you aware of what Harry Potter was at the time, or?
I was on holiday with my kids a couple of years before, and they were reading the first two books. And of course, I couldn't get any conversation out of them at all because they were just buried in these two books. And I thought, well, I'd better read them, otherwise there's going to be a non-conversational holiday. So I read the first two books, and I loved them. And my daughter said, "They're making a film." I said, "Are they?" I didn't know. I never know what's going on outside, So, so I got my agent onto it and managed to get an audition. And then after a few weeks, I got a recall. And then in front of all the producers came from America for the second one because they wanted to see, what they got in mind. And then after a few more weeks waiting, and my kids saying, "Dad, you've got to get this part. This is Harry Potter. You've got to get it." So, like, no pressure, And then eventually I got the call to say I'd got it. And that meant doing the rounds of talking to makeup departments and the costume department and the director, and to discuss what the look should be. Obviously, it's always because you make a decision with film, and once you've made that decision and you've worn that costume, you can't change your mind and say, "Actually, I think he'd wear pink." You can't do that because you've set the standard. So we rummaged about with lots of different costumes, all really tacky and smelly, and of course, because it was Filch. And we found something which was a cross between somebody from the old Wild West and a medieval pickpocket, and we thought that was the right look, and so I was happy and they were happy. So there's all this stuff goes on before you even start filming, and it was great fun to play, because instead of being a hate figure for children everywhere in the world, which I thought I was going to be, I was relieved and pleased when we saw the premiere of the first film, and I could hear all the children in the audience laughing. I thought, "Oh, they like him, and I didn't think they would. And so every time a new book came out, I sent my kids out to the local bookshop to flick through the new book to see if I was still alive. Because it happens sometimes where you think you're going to be in something for a long time, and then suddenly he gets killed off for some reason. So I was very fortunate that they kept him alive for 10 years.
Wow. And of course, speaking of someone that got killed off, Walder Frey, Game of Thrones. He was a very, very different character from your other ones. He was very, very dark, very devious, very evil to a degree.
Yeah.
How was it like playing him?
Well, that's your version. But
Okay.
for me, he was a misunderstood family man. Okay.
Okay, fair enough.
And he had like 40-odd children to feed and to marry off. And in the cold, harsh world in which he existed, if anybody, it was like a Sicilian mafia vendetta. Once he'd been let down by Rob Stark, who'd promised to marry his daughter. A promise is a promise in that world. And so he had to react the way he did and do what he did, or so he would say, because his honor had been questioned and he'd been, he thought somebody here is taking the mickey, i.e. the Starks, you know, and if you break a promise in that kind of world, your reputation, if you don't react or do something about it, you become a kind of non-person and not a threat to anyone. And he didn't want to be like that. He had to keep up his power and his reputation. So that's, as I said, that was the world in which he lived, and it was a dog-eat-dog, literally. So for me to play that part properly,
Yeah.
I had to think of him in those terms rather than being just. If I thought of him as just, excuse me, if I thought of him as being just a baddie or a ruthless man, it would have limited the way I played it.
Yeah.
You'd just be a snarling, evil character. But I found he had a lot of humor in him as well. I mean, not laugh out loud humor, you know, but I just found him so unpleasant and so ruthless that it made me laugh, you know.
And one of the most infamous scenes in Game of Thrones history, the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
What was it like to be involved in that?
Well, it was just extraordinary. 'Cause I'd done one episode before in season 1, and then, but as far as I knew, I hadn't read the books. I didn't know if he was coming back, but people who had read the book said, "Oh, he comes back, you know, okay." But I wasn't prepared to receive through the post the few pages of the Red Wedding scene, and I thought, oh, this could be fun, you know, because it took a whole week.
Wow.
To do all the stabbing and the throat cutting and all that business.
Wow.
And there was a lot of mess to be cleared up after every take, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a bizarre thing to do, especially when Will Champion, the drummer from Coldplay, turned up at his own expense.
Wow.
He took time off from the Coldplay's tour being rehearsed, and he said, "I've come over, I just want to be in it, I'll be an extra." So they put Will up in the musicians' gallery at the top. And of course they gave him a tambourine because he's a drummer. So if people are serious watchers, they can spot him up in the musicians' gallery before all the crossbows come out and decimate everyone. So it was I mean, the fact that he was such a fan of the show, he said, I'll do anything, I'll just be in the background. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was just, and the director was so good, and it was so hot in the studio because there were so many of those huge candles that one of my daughters collapsed one day and fainted because of the heat. So it wasn't the most comfortable thing when there's blood flying about and feeling a bit wobbly because of all the candles. But I was just pleased with the result because it was quite painstaking, and every killing and every move had to be choreographed exactly right. And the preparation was quite intricate. So it wasn't like a free-for-all, just wave your knife around and you stab him, you stab her. It was like all carefully choreographed over a whole week. Yeah.
Wow. And what was your reaction when you saw it back for the first time?
Well, I didn't have to wait because people were on social media were showing me videos of people's reactions to it. Reactions to the Red Wedding. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just people from all over the world being filmed by their friends.
Yeah.
And then they don't know what's coming up, but their friends do. So I got sent all these little videos of people swearing at me and threatening me. And I thought, well, it's great, how often do you do something that has that kind of reaction?
Yeah.
And really, Walder Frey isn't a huge part. He appears in the Red Wedding, of course, and then he comes back to have his throat cut in season 6.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of episodes in between. But it was great that people still were waiting to see what would happen to him. And
Yeah.
there was a lot of speculation on how it would be, and a lot of people suggesting some pretty gruesome things for me to cause my demise. So, yeah, I've been thrilled by the reaction to it and the fact that the character he took off. But the Red Wedding, of course, it became one of those shocking TV moments when they do those compilations. It would come out the #1 shock horror storyline, and I absolutely loved it. In fact, I think I enjoyed doing that scene probably a bit more than I should have.
Well, we've got time just for about a couple of audience questions. So if you'd like to ask David a question, feel free to stick your hand up and I will come round to you. And so let's see who we want first. It's going to go to this person here first.
David, how did you get into the acting game?
How did you get into the acting game?
How did I get into it? Well, none of my family weren't theatre goers, and of course when I was that young there wasn't much on TV. So the thought of, if I'd have told my careers officer at the secondary modern school I went to that I wanted to be an actor, he'd have probably kicked me up the backside and said, and I did. I took an apprenticeship in engineering for 5 years and then stayed for 8 years. And then realised that I wasn't God's gift to engineering, and I better think of something else. And I happened to belong to a youth club that did musicals and plays and things, and so I just kind of drifted into it for something to do in the evenings, really. And then someone suggested I should try for drama school, and I never thought it was something I would never have thought of suggesting myself. And it took about 3 years and quite a few attempts, but then I got in. So, and generally, it's been very good to me since then. But it was almost, if I'd been good at anything else, I would probably have stuck with it and kept acting as a kind of amateur hobby or something. But well, think about it. It's all I can do, so I better work at it. And I'm still working at it.
And
Thank you.
Got time for one final question, so I'm going to go here.
Out of the Doctor and Walder Frey, which character was more challenging to get into?
Which was more challenging?
Yeah.
The Doctor, I think, because as soon as I read the Walder Frey scenes, it just clicked. I thought, I think I know how to do this. I think I know how to get maximum fun and horror out of it, because he was so clearly defined. But with the Doctor, you're dealing with someone, an actor, who actually existed and you want to get it absolutely right. So there was a kind of responsibility in making sure I did an accurate portrayal of him, and I wanted to honor his memory, not only for him, because he was an actor I admired, but also for his family. I didn't want his family saying, that wasn't my granddad at all, or that wasn't my father. But thankfully, his family came to visit the set quite a lot, and they gave me the thumbs up and said, yeah, that's just how it was. But I found I had to make sure I got it absolutely right, because I would have hated it if one of his family had said, no, you know, it would have been so disappointing. And so I was glad that I did all my homework. I had a lot more homework to do on that than as Walder Frey. Walder Frey, I just had to read the script, and I thought, yeah, I know this guy. Is that all right? Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a massive round of applause to the brilliant David Bradley.
Thank you. It's been great. And I sincerely hope you enjoy the Christmas episode, and not only enjoy it, but I hope you approve of what we've done with it, because we're quite proud of it. So thank you.
One more time for David Bradley, ladies and gentlemen, who will be at the signing area this afternoon if you wish to go over and ask him any more questions and get something signed by him. And he will be with us this Christmas on the Doctor Who Christmas special.